Good morning and welcome back to the Bible study for day 155. At the moment we're looking at ancient tales and dialogues and parables that humanized the law, and particularly at the moment we're looking at the books of Ruth, Jonah and Job, and we're continuing now this morning with the continuation of the story of Ruth. Day 155, Ruth meets Boaz, Ruth chapter 2, verses 17 to 21, with some reference later in the commentary to two other chapters. I'll turn you around so you can see what it is that I'm reading. Ruth spent all day gathering corn from Boaz's field, as Boaz had allowed her to. When she had threshed it, it amounted to about 10 kilos, which she took back to town and showed to her mother-in-law. She also handed over the leftovers from the lunch she had shared with Boaz. Naomi asked, "Where's all this come from? Whose field were you working in? God bless him for looking after you like this." Ruth told her she'd been working in Boaz's field. "Yahweh bless Boaz," she exclaimed. "Yahweh does keep his promises, both to the living and to the dead. That man is a member of our family, so he has a responsibility to look after us." Ruth then added, "Best of all, he told me to keep on gleaning alongside his workers until the harvest is all in." Jewish law had historically allowed the poor to glean food from the field edges, and farmers were obliged not to mow right up to the field boundaries so that the poor would have enough. But this noble fellow named Boaz likes the look of Ruth, who is gleaning in his field, and he shares his lunch with her. He also allows her to take grain not just from the boundaries, but also from the stooks waiting to be carted off to the barn for threshing. Naomi is surprised at how much grain Ruth brings home and is delighted to discover that she has met Boaz, a relative of hers. And after this, she gives Ruth a little womanly advice about how to win his heart. Ruth puts on a nice dress and some perfume, and at the end of the working day, on the threshing floor where Boaz falls asleep, she lies down by his feet. When he wakes up in the night to find her there, it is Ruth that reminds him of his family obligations, and then she proposes marriage. You can see this in Ruth chapter 3. He agrees, and she is then able to slip away unseen by anyone else. But there is a problem with another man in the family who is a slightly closer relative of Naomi's, and he would have a stronger legal claim on Ruth. So, as we see in Ruth chapter 4, the legal wrangles have to be sorted out, and finally Boaz can say, "Ruth, the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, becomes my wife by law. His property will be kept in his own family now, and his descendants will continue to live in his town." You can see that in Ruth chapter 4, verse 10. Thus, Ruth the Moabite is given the same rights as an ethnically Jewish widow, and once again the racial discrimination being carried out by the priestly class at the same time that the story was being written is called into question. Setting the story so far back in history was the writer's way of saying that the racial rules being applied after the Babylon exile were emphatically not the rules that had existed before the exile, before even the establishment of the first monarchy. This story was a serious challenge to the conservative elite, so thank goodness it survived. And there was yet one more challenge to come from this enlightened writer, as we shall see tomorrow when I shall read some more from the book of Ruth.